Hello, my name is Kevin, and with me is Charlie, and today we are going to provide you with an introduction to web development. So today we're going to accomplish each of these objectives, and hopefully by the end, you will have your own personal web page. We'll learn the basics of how the internet works, since being a web developer is difficult without understanding the web. We'll learn the basics of front and back-end development before Charlie will lead us through a demonstration of HTML and CSS, which are two languages that structure and style every website. We'll teach you how to use the documentation, and finally, we'll provide you with the next steps to becoming a web developer. If you have any questions, feel free to type in the chat, and one of our teaching assistants will help you. So we're going to start with this question. What is the internet? So the internet is a communication network for computers around the world, but we're going to figure out how these computers are connected and how we're able to load a web page from all across the country. This is best explained with a simple sentence that will introduce us to a couple of key terms. A client receives data from a web server that is loaded onto a browser. The client is you, the user, when you press the enter in the search bar, which makes a web request. This request is sent to a web server somewhere in the world, which is essentially a computer that stays on 24/7 with the sole purpose of listening for, receiving, and managing your data. This request is loaded onto your browser through a response, which receives all the files from the server and renders them to be presented as specified by the file. If you've ever used Inspect Element to play a trick on your friends, you'll know that you can access these files and change them as you wish. But once you hit refresh and make a web request again, you'll receive the same file as before and all your changes will be lost. All right, so we've covered quite a bit of terms in the web, but we're going to talk briefly about how you make that web request and that reaches the server from all the way across the world. So when you press the enter bar in your search bar, the request is sent to your internet service provider or ISP, such as Xfinity or AT&T, and it is next sent to the domain name system or DNS server, which is similar to a phone book. It takes a request and finds the internet provider or IP address, which corresponds to the server you want to make the request from. IP addresses look something like the numbers and dots we have above, which are unique to the region the server is located at. So actually just typing that IP address on the top right will take you straight to the familiar Google Home web page. The request is sent to the server and the response travels back through the internet to your computer. All right, so now we're going to move from web to web development. A web developer works to build, update, and maintain a web application. The two main specializations of developers are front-end and back-end. And as a front-end developer, your job is to provide the face of your web application. You will design the user interface and the user experience, UI and UX for short, and make your web pages interactive with widgets such as buttons or links or search bars. Front-end developers must also make sure that their web pages are responsive or able to be viewed differently on the phone, tablet, or computer to maximize their user experience. As a backend developer, your job is to manage the server side of the web application, the part that a user doesn't see. These include databases that store data, such as the tweet you tweet on the products you order off Amazon, as well as program servers to interpret web requests and send back responses. So their goal is going to be to provide the logic behind the website and make sure that it runs as intended. And finally, a person that is versed in both front and back-end development is called a full stack developer. They know a decent amount of both front and back end. They can provide communication between the front and back end to make sure that they both work together smoothly and help work on whatever is needed by both sides. All right, so now that we've kind of gotten the terms out of the way, we'll jump into some code. So there are three main languages every web developer needs to know: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Given the amount of time we have, we can only provide you with an introduction to HTML and CSS, which provide the structure and style of every web page on the internet. So we're going to start first with HTML. An HTML file is made up of HTML elements, which look like this entire line that we have below. An element contains an opening tag, some content, and the closing tag. And the closing tag is characterized by that slash. So here we create an element called a paragraph, or P, with the words hello world in it. This would output what we have in the bottom left, which is just a plain, simple, boring hello world. Of course, we want something a lot more interesting than plain text. So you can add things called attributes, which provide characteristics to your element. Here we add a style attribute, and we give this attribute a value. Here we highlight the text and we make the background color blue. We can keep adding more and more style elements to make our text look even better, separating them with semicolons. We can change the font, for example. We can change the color. But by now, I think that you'll realize how long and untidy our element has become. And that's why we need to separate our style from our structure with something called a CSS file. So CSS looks a little different. We have a selector that indicates what type of element that is being styled. Here, the paragraph that we had before. And in the case of the paragraph, within the brackets, we have that same list of attributes as we did before. So we got the color, and we're going to set it to green. And at the end of each value, you must add a semicolon to indicate that it is the end of one attribute and the start of another. So we could style the CSS file with multiple attributes that create the same thing as giving a long list of styles to the HTML element. This makes our code much cleaner and easier to understand, especially if you want to debug something. So these two files, for example, the index.html and styles.css would look like this if you want to create that same output as we did before. All right, so now that we understand the structure of each language, Charlie will lead us through a demo of the basics of HTML and CSS, and we will eventually give you guys the chance to try them out as well. So I'm going to transfer these screen sharing to Charlie.
Hi everyone, I'm Charlie. So I'm gonna give you a short demo on how to code HTML and CSS. So let me share my screen. Can you guys see it? Cool, okay. So today we'll be doing our demo using an online editor called Glitch, which will give you a live demonstration of your code. So I will type the website in the chat. Give me a second. So if you go to that website, you'll see what you see here. So first, you need to log in here. So here you go log in, and you can log in use your Google or GitHub, which is very fast. So I'm gonna do that with my Google account. Yeah, it's kind of slow. Okay, so now that you have logged in, I want you to create a new project here. If you go to the upper right, you'll see the new project button. You click that, and you'll see an option of import from GitHub right here. So click that. You ask you for a URL, and I will send the URL in the chat. So you will copy the URL and you just paste it directly here. Hit OK, and just wait for the page to load. So while this is loading, I'm gonna just make sure that don't panic if you can write down everything I write, because the point of the demo is to make sure you understand my logic and the functionalities of all the elements. The point is not to write down everything I write. So, and I will have a document with all the code used in the demo provided to you. So don't worry, just try to follow along and just understand my explanations. Okay, so here we have the basic project skeletons. So here on the left, you can see you have two files, the index.html and the style.css. So those are the two files we'll be using today. And on the top, you can see there is a show button. So if you click that button and you see an option of next to the code, click that. You should be able to see here. Now we have two windows. So the left window will be our code, and the right window will be our live demo of our website. Now it has nothing because we haven't coded anything, but as we start adding code here, you'll see the website here. Okay, so let's start on the index.html. So here we already have some piece of code here. So let me explain. So the first line here, the Doctype Html is required for every HTML file. It tells the browser that it's an HTML file, so the browser knows how to deal with it. So you want to have that on your file for every HTML file you wrote. And then we have several elements here. The outermost element is the HTML element. As you can see, just recall from the size, you have a start tag and end tag here. The only difference is that you have a slash here. So we have a start tag and end tag, and everything in between is content. And so now we have two elements in between, the head element and the body element. So the head element follows the same logic. You have a start tag, you have an end tag, and you have a content. So the head element contains all the meta information about the file. So, and one very common component in the head element is the title. So let's write that down. So title, start tag, and you have the end tag. And everything is in between is content. So you can write something like this. So the title element is what you will see on your browser right here, index.html. That's the title of a website. And now let's move to the body part, the body section. So the body section, the body element contains all the visible content you'll see on the website. So there are a few very common content I want to talk about. So the first element is the paragraph, the heading element, which can be written as using the H1 tag. So we do H1 and backslash H1. So that's a very simple heading. And you can write something like H1 heading. And you can see on the right, it's shown as this is a H1 heading. That's why we use this website for our demo, because it's live and you can see your change instantaneously. And there are a lot of things we can do with the heading. So once you can do is that we can change its font. Now it has a default font of that. And what we can do is that we can copy that and we can change the number here. Your choice will be 1 to 6. So we can change it to maybe 6. You can see the heading is much smaller than the one before. So the smaller the number, the larger the font will be. So the next element we want to be talking about is a paragraph element, which will be written using the P tag. So here we have a simple paragraph. We say this. And you can see it's right here. It's very simple. It has no default format, so it is what it is. And if you want to add some format to it, you have to add additional elements. So for example, if you do here, you do a enter here, nothing changed because it doesn't have any default format. So if you want to create a new line or create several paragraphs, there are several things you can do. So first, you can use a break element, which is BR. You can, okay, sorry, go back to here. So you can insert a BR element here, which is BR slash. So this one is a little bit different because it's a special type of element that doesn't have a end tag or content. It just has a start tag. So you do BR space and slash. And as you can see, the BR element creates a space, a new line here. So now this paragraph has 2 lines. And another thing you can do is you can use the HR tag. Let me show you. So you change the BR to HR. You can see there is a line actually here to separate 2 paragraphs as a separation. So that's an alternative approach. And also, if you really want to have a formatted text, you can use a PRE tag. It's a special type of paragraph that has default format in it. So if you write this is space a 3 4, you can see it follows the exact format you type in here, in case you want to keep your own format. And also, there are a lot of things you can do with a paragraph. So we copy that and we paste it here. So if you want to make your text bold, you can do something like a bold text. And you can wrap the bold, the word bold, with a BR, the B tag. So now you can see the word bold is now in bold text. And you can also do italic text using the same logic, but change the B to I. So now you can see that piece of text is italic. Yeah. And also you can add some styles, add some more functionalities to paragraph, as we have talked about before, using attributes. So if we copy that, it's here. So we can, so as attributes will be added in the star tag after a space. So we can do style equals double quote. So first, if you want to change the color, you can do color dot red. Now the text color has been changed to red. And you can also do things like background color. You can give it orange, let's say orange. You can see the background color has been changed to orange. And also you can change its font. We do font family. Let's say now its font has also been changed. And also the same logic, you can use font size to change its font size, maybe 200%. Now you can see the text is twice as large as before. And also you can align the text the way you want. You can do text align and maybe center. Now the text has been aligned in the center. So there are a lot of ways you can modify the default functionalities of an element using the attributes. And another attribute you can use is called title. So let me show it here. So here, also in the start tag, you can write title equals. Now it will be your default message. You can say title. So what does that do? As a fact that if you move your mouse over here, you can see it says I'm a title. So it's just a cool little feature to have. And now we have talked about so many styles. We want to introduce the idea of CSS. As you have seen in the slides, the full name is Cascading Style Sheets. It specifies all the styles for all elements in HTML. And there are 3 ways to do that. The first way is to use inline CSS, which is right here. You add the CSS in the start tag of your element. That approach is for simple style, like 1 or 2 elements here. But if you have a lot of style to add, you might want to consider other approaches. So one approach you want to consider is called the internal style. So here in the head, you add a style element. So you do style and close. Sorry. So in between, you can specify the styles for any element you want. So for example, you can specify the styles for H1 element. So you do H1 and curly bracket. You can do things like background color light blue. You can see so background color has been changed to light blue, and you can also do text. Now the text should be center. Yeah, should be centered. But still, like if you have a lot of styles to do, if you put everything in the head, it'll be a very large list, and it'll not be very convenient if you want to debug or manage it. So the third approach, also the most common approach, is to use the external CSS, which is a style.css file. You put all the CSS specifications into that file for easy debugging and management. And the logic will be exactly the same. So you copy that, you go to a style.css, and you paste it here, and you can change that to, let's say, 6. And before you do that, you have to go to the head section and add something here, which is an external link. So the HTML file knows where to find the styles. So you do the link. It's also one of the special type of elements that only has a start tag. So you do link, and first the relationship will be style sheet. And the file type will be text.css. CSS. And the hypertext reference will be, which is a file name, which will be style.css. So now your HTML file is linked to the style.css file, and you can see its style has also been changed here. So you can also change the whole body element by changing H6 to body. And yeah, and you can give another color, maybe blue. Oh yeah, I don't like that. Yeah, okay. So now the whole body element has been modified. So you can do that. And then you might be asking, like, is it possible for me to change one specific element, not just a group of elements, maybe just one heading among all the headings? Yeah, you can do that, but with the help of the ID and the class elements. So I'm going to introduce that. So let's take paragraph, for example. So the ID and classes are also attributes that you add in the start tag. So for this paragraph, we can give it ID, a unique ID. Let's call PID. And also for a element, you can give it a class name, which you can do like class equals P class. And what's the difference? So the difference is that for every ID, it can only be associated to one unique element. So if we want to do, copy that and paste, there's an error because you cannot have two elements with the same ID. But for class, you can have several elements with the same class name. So if we copy that and we paste it here, there's no error. So we can do 1 and 2. There will be no error because you can have multiple elements associated to one class name. And now we have a way to identify our elements. So we can just do that and add styles to that specific elements. So if we copy here and paste, and hold on, just give me a second. Okay, so first for ID, you can use the pound and the ID, and you can do your style here. You can give it like purple, maybe. You can see that paragraph with a specific ID, with PID, its color has been changed to purple. And you can also do headings. Heading is maybe you can do 10px. So padding means you can almost draw a box around the text. So 10px means the upper, the top, the bottom, the right and left are both 10px. So it's almost like you wrap the text around with a box. Okay, so okay. Sorry. And then for class, it's almost identical, but with one small change. You can just replace the pound with a dot and have p class. Now those two has also been changed to a specific style. And one last thing I want to talk about is some additional elements you might be interested. So go back to the body section. So first, sometimes you want to add a link in your website, some external links, and when you click that link, it will lead you to some external website. So the way you do it is to use the A element. So you do a start and tag. And in between, it will be your description of the website. Let's say, okay. But then you have to give it the links, actual link. So yeah, so the HTML file knows where to redirect you to. So in the start tag, you add attribute called hypertext reference href and equals. So you add your link here. So let's say we want to go to google.com. So we will paste the link of google.com here. And remember, you have to add your HTTPS here for it to work. So now you have a button which will direct you to a google.com. Let's try. Yeah, so it works. It directs you to google.com. You can add your own links here that will direct to the website you want it to direct to. And also, one of the most important feature of HTML is that you can add image in your website, and you want to use the image element. So that's also one of the special kind of elements that only has a start tag, doesn't have any content or any end tag. So here, first you have to specify the source of the image. So you do src equals, and that should be your source of the image. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So first, let's go to google.com. And let's download a random image. Let's say Vanderbilt logo. So you put image. You find the first one. You can download the image to a local computer. So we say, so you can see I already have a logo here. So we say Vandy. So now you have an image on your local drive. You go to the left bar and you'll see a button called New File. You click on that button and you'll see an option is upload a file. You choose that option. You allow you to upload a file from your local drive, so local computer. So you choose an image, you just download it from the internet. You can say open. Now, if you go to the assets here, the assets section, you can see your picture here. And then you click on that picture. There's a link here. You do copy. And you go back to your index.html and you paste your link here. And boom, you have an image here. And you can also specify size of the image by using the width and height. So we can say it's equal to 200. And yeah, around 200. And height also equals 200. Now you have changed the size to be 200 and 200. Yeah, and also since we are doing it on glitch, that's the way we get the link. But if you are writing an HTML file on your local drive, the link should be the relative path of the image on your computer comparing to your HTML file. So just as a reminder for future use. And that basically concludes our short demo of HTML file and the CSS. And now let me stop sharing. Now I'm gonna split you guys into breakout rooms, and you'll be making your own website. You have 20 minutes to make your own website based on the code I have given to you. And so your own website, there's no limitation on the topic, but I will suggest if you don't know where to start, you can start from making your own personal website, which will be a brief introduction of yourself, maybe some pictures, maybe some background information, and have different sections, and add some different style to your website. So basically, that's a backbone of your maybe your future personal bio, and and I will give you the link with all the code I have just been written. So if you go to the chat, you can see there's a GitHub repo. And okay, so let me share my screen again. So if you click on the link, yeah, and that GitHub repo contains all the demo code I have just shown to you. So first you have the index.html. It has all the code I have been writing. Yeah, and also the style.css. It also contains all the style examples you can use. And also I have several useful links here. So first here you have HTML guide here, which is a guide for everything you know about HTML. And also there's element reference that contains a list of all the elements you can add in HTML. And also the CSS color names, in case you want to choose your own color, you can find your color here. And also the CSS property here. They have all the styles you can change, you can modify in your HTML and CSS. So yeah, that's all you have to know for now. And I will split you guys into breakout rooms, and just I'll give you 20 minutes to make your own website. And if you have any questions, you can just, I think there's an option called ask for help in the breakout room, and me and Kevin and other TAs will come and help you. So yeah, good luck, and I will see you guys in 20 minutes.
So I hope you guys learned a lot about HTML and CSS, as well as a bit about how the internet works today. But obviously, there's only so much that we can teach in this hour we have. So we're just going to provide you with a little bit of advice on the many resources that you can use to your disposal, which in my opinion is really important given the amount of time that we have, since we want to lead you onto your path to success. So if you think you have HTML and CSS down, the next thing you would have to learn is JavaScript, which is used in both front and back-end development. There are a lot of great channels on YouTube as well. These specific channels have thousands of hours of video, and you can just type something like HTML or CSS, and you can just get started with a playlist and just get in depth, because a lot of these channels are capable of taking you from beginner to very, very advanced, all for free. So YouTube overall is an incredible resource. There's also many social media platforms, and each has their own way to help you learn web development. On Instagram, for example, there are various, UI and UX, user interface, user experience design pages that give you a ton of advice daily on how to capture a client's attention or enhance the user experience. And then if you want a set curriculum, if you want something like a course, you can always choose an online course like Udemy or an in-person one. These ones cost a little bit of money, but they save a lot of time, and they provide help if you're struggling with a concept. But in my opinion, the best resource that we have are books. As I'm sure almost all of your college students, you have access to school libraries that we too often don't use to our advantage. So even just looking up HTML or CSS on your school library website, you'll see hundreds and hundreds of results. So in terms of books, I would recommend finding a book that you're interested in, reading some reviews of the book on Amazon, going to the forward and figuring out what you need to know in advance and what you'll learn, and then just read. These books are paid content, and they're carefully curated to teach everything you need to know and provide great reference later on when you need a refresher. So I would personally recommend these two books right here that helped me learn. One is a more image introduction to HTML and CSS that will dive more in depth than we have today. And then the second one will help you learn JavaScript, which is a coding language that helps provide logic behind every web application. Both of these ebooks are available in the Vanderbilt Library, and they're free to students. And finally, of course, you need determination and practice. It's important not to rush through concepts, to skip tutorials, because those concepts, especially in the beginning, will always come to bite you back in the future. And it's important that you build a strong foundation and understanding the basics. Most importantly, however, you need to practice, work on projects, find something online that you want to recreate, and just keep practicing, because coding is a skill that, like every other skill, has to be maintained. And learning concepts will do no good if you just can't apply them. So keep at it and be patient, and it will all become worthwhile. So that is all we have for today. Thank you guys so much for coming by, and we hope to see you at some of our other Vanny Hack workshops in the very near future. So we value your feedback a lot, and we strongly recommend that you fill out this form about our workshop today, which I believe has been put in the chat, and Charlie and I will stick around if you have any questions.
Thank you, guys.